Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. Tomorrow me has everything figured out. Tomorrow me wakes up early, gets organized, never gets distracted, and definitely follows through. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. Honestly, it's impressive to watch. Too bad I'm not tomorrow me. Every evening we have meetings, me and the person I'll be tomorrow. He agrees to all the goals without asking any questions. Gym at 6, healthy breakfast, finish every important project, read a book, learn a new skill, become a better person before lunch. Apparently, tomorrow me says yes to absolutely everything. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. Tomorrow me has everything figured out. Tomorrow me wakes up early, gets organized, never gets distracted, and definitely follows through. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. Honestly, it's impressive to watch. Too bad I'm not tomorrow me. Then morning arrives and we finally meet. Turns out tomorrow me has become today me, which creates a serious problem because today me immediately starts negotiating deadlines, reducing expectations, and looking for opportunities to postpone everything one more day. The confidence disappears at exactly the same time as the alarm. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. He's practically a superhero. He runs marathons, builds habits, answers emails, and drinks enough water. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. I believe in him completely. That's why I keep giving him all my responsibilities. Maybe tomorrow I'll finally become the person I've been assigning work to for the last 6 months. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated. The legend continues growing. Every task I avoid today makes him even more accomplished. Tomorrow me is extremely motivated, and I wish him the best because based on current trends, he's got a very busy schedule. Good luck tomorrow me. You're going to need it. I'll start right after this video. That's what I said an hour ago. One more clip, one more recommendation, then suddenly it's dark outside. I'll start right after this video. The plan still sounds reasonable. Unfortunately, the algorithm has other ideas. I opened my laptop with purpose. Today was finally the day. I had a task, a deadline, a clear objective. Everything was ready. Then I checked one thing quickly, which led to another thing, which somehow became a documentary about something I wasn't interested in yesterday. The internet keeps offering options, and I keep accepting them. I'll start right after this video. That's what I said an hour ago. One more clip, one more recommendation, then suddenly it's dark outside. I'll start right after this video. The plan still sounds reasonable. Unfortunately, the algorithm has other ideas. Now I'm learning random facts about abandoned theme parks, deep-sea creatures, ancient civilizations, and a guy who built a cabin using only sticks. None of this helps with what I was supposed to do, but technically I'm gaining Just one more and then I'm serious. I've said that so many times it's starting to sound like a slogan. I'll start right after this video. I truly believe it every time. The problem is future videos keep arriving before I can begin. Autoplay knows me better than I know myself. I'll start right after this video. The task is still waiting patiently. Meanwhile, I've completed an accidental degree in internet nonsense. I'll start right after this video. At least that's the current schedule, unless another recommendation appears at exactly the wrong time, which it will. Next video starting in 3, 2, 1. The plan was better than the execution. The presentation looked amazing. The strategy was flawless. The results were considerably less impressive. The plan was better than the execution. I'd like that officially noted, because if we're grading ideas, I was absolutely crushing it. I started with confidence, color-coded schedules, helpful reminders, a timeline that made perfect sense. I even left room for setbacks, unexpected complications, and reasonable breaks. What I didn't account for was being me, which turned out to be a major oversight. The plan understood the assignment. I did not. The plan was better than the execution. The presentation looked amazing. The strategy was flawless. The results were considerably less impressive. The plan was better than the execution. I'd like that officially noted, because if we're grading ideas, I was absolutely crushing it. Step 1 was simple. Step 2 seemed manageable. Step 3 required effort, and that's where things got complicated. Suddenly I needed a snack, a break, a different playlist, and 30 minutes to think about whether I was approaching this correctly. I wasn't approaching it at all. As it turns out, the vision remains strong. The follow-through took the day off. The plan was better than the execution, but that's hardly surprising. I've got a long history of making blueprints for castles, then forgetting to buy bricks. The plan was better than the execution, and yet I remain optimistic, because creating new plans is one of my strongest skills. Maybe the next plan will include instructions for actually doing things. The plan was better than the execution. A familiar story, honestly. Every detail looked perfect until reality got involved. The plan was better than the execution, but I learned something important, mostly how to make an even better plan for tomorrow. Execution pending. Execution pending. I spent all day preparing to begin, which sounds productive until you think about it. Everything is ready except the actual starting part. I spent all day preparing to begin. The setup has never looked better. were the goal, I'd already be finished. Woo! I cleaned my desk completely, organized every folder, found the perfect notebook, made a fresh cup of coffee. I adjusted the lighting, picked the ideal playlist, watched a video about focus, then another one about discipline, then a third one about avoiding procrastination, which felt relevant. The environment is perfect, the work remains untouched. I spent all day preparing to begin, which sounds productive until you think about it. Everything is ready, except the actual starting part. I spent all day preparing to begin. The setup has never looked better. If preparation were the goal, I'd already be finished. Ooh. I made a detailed schedule for how I'd use my time, then spent an hour improving the schedule. I researched better methods, compared different approaches, created a backup plan in case the first plan failed, which was impressive considering neither plan ever got tested. I've eliminated every obstacle except myself. I spent all day preparing to begin. At this point, it's becoming performance art. The commitment to avoiding the first step is honestly remarkable. I spent all day preparing to begin, and now it's somehow evening. The task hasn't moved an inch, but the workspace looks fantastic. Maybe I've mistaken getting ready for getting started. I spent all day preparing to begin. Tomorrow I'll be unstoppable, because everything is finally in place again. For the third day in a row, I spent all day preparing to begin. The preparation phase is complete. The beginning phase has been rescheduled. Woo! Ready whenever I am. I made a to-do list instead. That felt productive enough. The task is still exactly where I left it, but now it's written down beautifully. I made a to-do list instead, with bullet points and priorities. Nothing has actually happened yet, but the organization is incredible. I sat down ready to work, determined to make progress. Then I thought, before I start, I should probably get organized. One list became two lists, then categories appeared, then color coding, then symbols to indicate urgency, which felt very professional. The work remains unfinished. The formatting is outstanding. I made a to-do list instead. That felt productive enough. The task is still exactly where I left it, but now it's written down beautifully. I made a to-do list instead, with bullet points and priorities. Nothing has actually happened yet, but the organization is incredible. I ranked every assignment, estimated completion times, added check boxes for future satisfaction, then rearranged everything 3 separate times to optimize efficiency. For a workload I still hadn't started. At this point, the list was working harder than I was. I've become very productive at planning productivity. I made a to-do list instead, and honestly, I'm proud of it. Clear structure, logical order, excellent visual presentation. I made a to-do list instead. The task can wait a little longer. management system. Nothing motivates me like creating a document about doing something later. I made a to-do list instead. The masterpiece is finally complete. Everything I need to do is perfectly organized in one convenient place. I made a to-do list instead, which means tomorrow I can spend even more time updating it. Task completed, make list. Actual task pending. Technically, I'm thinking about it, which has to count for something. The task has occupied my thoughts all day. That's basically participation. Technically, I'm thinking about it. I haven't started, but mentally, I've been very involved. The project is sitting on my desk, patiently waiting for me to make literally any progress. Instead, I've been imagining how nice it'll feel when it's finally done. I visualize success several times already. Honestly, the future looks great. The execution is missing. The enthusiasm is present. Technically, I'm thinking about it, which has to count for something. The task is occupied my thoughts all day. That's basically participation. Technically, I'm thinking about it. I haven't started, but mentally, I've been very involved. Every hour I remember it exists, then immediately feel responsible for approximately 8 seconds before finding something else to focus on instead. A snack, a notification, a random question about whether penguins have knees. The answer is yes. The task remains unfinished. I've learned many things today. None of them were required. Technically, I'm thinking about it. At this point, I'm practically supervising the idea of doing the work without doing the work itself. Technically, I'm thinking about it, and if thinking burned calories, I'd be exhausted. By now, the task and I have spent a lot of time together, just not in a productive way. Technically, I'm thinking about it. The relationship is getting serious. I've imagined starting, I've imagined finishing, I've imagined celebrating. Technically, I'm thinking about it. The only thing left to imagine is actually doing it, which feels a little ambitious today. Still thinking very actively. Future me agreed to handle this without reading the terms and conditions. I made the decision yesterday, and now he's stuck with the consequences. Woo! Future me agreed to handle this. He's been accepting responsibilities all week. Honestly, I'm starting to think he's being taken advantage of. Every time there's something difficult, I know exactly what to do. I simply move it forward to a version of me who seems much more capable. Tomorrow me gets the email making promises. He keeps inheriting them. Future me agreed to handle this, oh, without reading the terms and conditions. I made the decision yesterday, oh, and now he's stuck with the consequences. Future me agreed to handle this, oh, he's been accepting responsibilities all week. Honestly, I'm starting to think he's being taken advantage of. The problem is eventually future me becomes current me, and that's when the complaints begin. Suddenly I'm looking at tasks, wondering who volunteered me for all this extra work. Then I remember it was me. 3 days ago, feeling very optimistic about someone else's schedule. The betrayal feels personal, despite being self-inflicted. Future me agreed to handle this. He always says yes immediately. The confidence is inspiring. The judgment is concerning. Future me agreed to handle this, and I'd like to thank him publicly for his sacrifice, his dedication, and his complete lack of boundaries. One day, future me is going to quit, and honestly, I wouldn't blame him. Future me agreed to handle this. The arrangement cannot continue. He's overbooked, overworked, and running out of available dates. Future me agreed to handle this, but after careful consideration, I think it's finally time to stop assigning him everything. Problem deferred again. I open the document, that's progress. Let's not get caught up in details. Sure, nothing has been written yet, but we're already farther than yesterday. I open the document, that's progress. I think that deserves some credit. You can't finish what you never start, and technically, the file is open. The blank page looked intimidating, so we spent a few minutes looking at it professionally, waiting for inspiration to make the first move. I adjusted the font, changed the margins, considered a different title, then changed it back. A productive session, depending on your definition. The cursor is blinking, we're communicating. I open the document, that's progress. Ooh, let's not get caught up in details. Sure, nothing has been written yet, but we're already farther than yesterday. I open the document, that's progress. I think that deserves some credit. You can't finish what you never start, and technically, the file is open. I typed a sentence, deleted a sentence, typed another sentence, questioned everything. Opened 3 reference tabs, read half an article, then somehow ended up checking the weather for a city I don't even live in. The document remained open the entire time. Momentum is a strong word, but something happened. I open the document, that's progress. The bar may be low, but it's still a bar, and today we're clearing it. I open the document, that's progress. The work has officially begun. Very slowly, very cautiously, but begun nonetheless. Every finished project. Started with somebody staring at a blank page, feeling confused. I open the document, that's progress. Tomorrow I might write a paragraph. The day after that, maybe even two. At this rate, success is inevitable eventually. I open the document, that's progress. And honestly, I'm choosing to celebrate the small victories today. Word count, not important. I need to be in the right mood. That's the issue apparently. The task is ready, the deadline is ready. I'm the only thing causing delays. I need to be in the right mood. At least that's today's explanation. Tomorrow I'll probably invent a completely different reason. Intention of finally getting started. Coffee ready, playlist ready, workspace looking inspirational. But something fell off. Not wrong exactly, just not quite right. The atmosphere wasn't perfect, the energy wasn't there. The stars seemed uncooperative. I'm waiting for motivation, like it's a scheduled delivery. I need to be in the right mood. That's the issue apparently. The task is ready, the deadline is ready. I'm the only thing causing delays. I need to be in the right mood. At least that's today's explanation. Tomorrow I'll probably invent a completely different reason. Maybe after lunch, maybe after a walk, maybe after I clean my desk, maybe after I think about it for another hour. The conditions keep changing like a very demanding contract written by somebody who clearly doesn't want the project to begin. That somebody is me. I've turned starting into a weather-dependent activity. I need to be in the right mood. The standards keep getting higher. At this point I'd need perfect lighting, ideal temperature, and a small miracle. I need to be in the right mood, or so I keep insisting. The task doesn't seem convinced, and honestly, neither am I. Funny how the mood never arrives first. It usually shows up after the work starts. I need to be in the right mood, but maybe that's not the problem. Maybe I've been waiting for a feeling that was never coming. I need to be in the right mood, or maybe I just need to begin badly and figure it out later. Mood unavailable, proceed anyway. Researching counts as working. That's the position I'm taking. I've spent 3 hours gathering information, and I refuse to call that procrastination. Researching counts as working. The evidence seems overwhelming. Sure, nothing is finished yet, but look how much I know now. I started with a simple question, something small and straightforward. 5 minutes of research, then I'd finally begin. Unfortunately, one answer led to 3 more questions. Then those questions opened entire new categories. Now I'm reading for practice standing still. My browser is thriving. Researching counts as working. That's the position I'm taking. I've spent 3 hours gathering information, and I refuse to call that procrastination. Researching counts as working. The evidence seems overwhelming. Sure, nothing is finished yet, but look how much I know now. I've compared every possible method, read every recommendation, watched expert opinions, found conflicting expert opinions, made a spreadsheet to organize the opinions, then researched the best way to organize spreadsheets. At this point, I'm becoming an expert on preparation itself. The knowledge keeps increasing, the progress remains theoretical. Working at least partially. Maybe not enough to finish anything, but certainly enough to feel busy. Researching counts as working, and I'm willing to defend that claim using sources, references, and 17 open tabs. Eventually, I'll know so much that actually starting will seem unnecessary. Researching counts as working. The line gets blurrier every hour. I've learned everything about doing the task except how to actually do it. Researching counts as working, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. Because otherwise, I've spent all afternoon avoiding reality. Further research required. I accidentally took a 3-hour break. I was aiming for 5 minutes. One small pause, one quick reset. Time performed a magic trick. I accidentally took a 3-hour break, and honestly, I'm impressed. I don't know where the afternoon went, but it definitely didn't go to work. The plan was simple: stand up for a second, grab a snack, stretch my legs, clear my head, return, refresh. That was the official schedule. Then somehow I ended up watching videos, reading comments, and learning things that had absolutely nothing to do with the task. The break remained productive for everybody except the project. I accidentally took a 3-hour break. I was aiming for 5 minutes. One small pause, one quick reset. Didn't go to work. At one point, I checked the clock and everything seemed normal. The next time I looked, the situation had escalated. Suddenly, it was evening. The sunlight was different. People were making dinner, and I was still mentally in the middle of a very temporary pause that had become a lifestyle. I've lost track of time with remarkable consistency. I accidentally took a 3-hour break. The commitment was never intentional, but if procrastination were a sport, I'd be setting records. I accidentally took a 3-hour break, and now the deadline looks concerned, which honestly feels fair given the circumstances. Maybe time moves faster when responsibility can't find you. for 5 minutes and returned in a completely different era. I accidentally took a 3-hour break. Tomorrow I'll be more careful, although history suggests that's probably not true. Break complete, day unavailable. The deadline suddenly feels relevant. Funny how that works. I've been ignoring it for 2 whole weeks. Now it's all I can think about. The deadline suddenly feels relevant. It has my full attention now. Apparently urgency arrives about 12 hours before it's needed. A few days ago, this seemed like a future problem. Plenty of time, no reason to panic. Everything felt manageable, comfortable even. Then I checked the calendar just to be safe, and immediately discovered I've made a terrible mistake involving basic mathematics. The schedule didn't change, my understanding did. The deadline suddenly feels relevant. Funny how that works. I've been ignoring it for 2 whole weeks. Now it's all I can think about. The deadline suddenly feels relevant. It has my full attention now. Apparently urgency arrives about 12 hours before it's needed. The task itself hasn't changed, but somehow it feels bigger, more important, more intimidating. Every minute that passes adds dramatic background music to an otherwise ordinary assignment. Now I'm calculating how much can realistically be done in one evening by someone fueled entirely by regrets. I've discovered motivation in the least relaxing way possible. The deadline suddenly feels relevant, and honestly it's being very dramatic, showing up everywhere, demanding attention, refusing to be ignored. The deadline suddenly feels relevant, like a surprise guest at a party. Except technically I invited it myself. Yesterday I had options. Today I have consequences. The deadline suddenly feels relevant. The panic has officially arrived. The same task I avoided for weeks has become tonight's entire personality. The deadline suddenly feels relevant, and strangely, so do I, because nothing increases productivity quite like running out of time. Estimated completion time immediately. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive. It should be here any minute now. I've checked the window, I've checked my phone, I've even cleared my schedule for it. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive, like it's stuck somewhere in traffic. Any second now, it's gonna show up and completely change my life. I've got the task, I've got the time, I've got everything I supposedly need, except the mysterious feeling that makes people suddenly want to do difficult things. I keep expecting a moment where inspiration crashes through the door, pointing dramatically at my unfinished work. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's running late. Maybe I forgot the address. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive. It should be here any minute now. I've checked the window, schedule for it. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive like it's stuck somewhere in traffic. Any second now, it's gonna show up and completely change my life. People keep saying just get started, as if motivation follows action instead of the other way around, which honestly sounds suspicious. I've spent years believing the perfect feeling comes first, then the work begins. But if that's true, motivation has an incredible talent for missing appointments. The waiting has become its own full-time activity. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive. The chair is ready, the coffee is ready, the project is definitely ready. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive. At this point, I should probably call it, ask if it's still coming, or if I've been ghosted by an emotion. Funny thing is, every time I finally start, motivation seems to appear afterward, like it was waiting for me the entire time. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive, but maybe I've got it backwards. Maybe motivation isn't the opening act. Maybe it shows up during the show. I'm waiting for motivation to arrive, or maybe I'll just begin and let it catch up later if it feels like it. Motivation status out for delivery. I deserve a reward for planning. I've been thinking about this all day. The work hasn't started, but the preparation was exhausting. I deserve a reward for planning. Maybe a snack, maybe a break, maybe several hours of doing nothing to celebrate my intentions. I made a schedule, set some goals, visualize success in remarkable detail. I organized priorities, estimated timelines, created a system for tracking progress, which is impressive considering there isn't any yet. The effort was hypothetical, the fatigue feels real. I deserve a reward for planning. I've been thinking about this all day. The work hasn't started, but the preparation was exhausting. I deserve a reward for planning. Maybe a snack, maybe a break, maybe several hours of doing nothing to celebrate my intentions. I spent 45 minutes deciding where to begin, then another 30 choosing the best approach. Then I researched alternatives, compared productivity methods, and watched a video about staying focused. At this point, I've invested so much energy avoiding the work that resting feels justified. The logic is questionable, the confidence is not. I deserve a reward for planning. Nobody's acknowledging my effort, but I've been extremely busy preparing to be productive. I deserve a reward for planning. Maybe after the reward, I'll finally get started, although that sounds suspiciously like another delay. It's amazing how often I celebrate milestones that technically don't exist. I deserve a reward for planning. The planning phase was a huge success. The execution phase remains in active development. I deserve a reward for planning, and tomorrow when I make it even better Achievement unlocked. Excellent intentions. Oh! The problem isn't going anywhere. I've checked repeatedly. I ignored it all morning, and it's still exactly where I left it. The problem isn't going anywhere, which honestly feels a little rude. I'd hoped it might solve itself, or at least become somebody else's. I tried giving it some space, thought maybe time would help. Sometimes things work themselves out without direct involvement. Unfortunately, this appears to be one of those situations where progress requires effort, which was disappointing news to receive on a perfectly good afternoon. I've been avoiding it professionally. It's been waiting patiently. The problem isn't going anywhere. I've checked repeatedly. I ignored it all morning, and it's still exactly where I left it. The problem isn't going anywhere, which honestly feels a little rude. I'd hoped it might solve itself, or at least become somebody else's. I answered emails, cleaned my desk, reorganized some folders, looked very busy for several hours. Meanwhile, the actual issue sat quietly in the corner like it knew. Eventually, I'd run out of distractions and have to acknowledge its existence. The clock is moving. The problem is not. The problem isn't going anywhere. It's showing remarkable commitment every time I come back. There it is, ready to continue the conversation I've been trying not to have. The problem isn't going anywhere, and somehow that feels personal. Maybe the reason it keeps following me around is because it's my problem. So I guess one of us has to move. I've spent all day hoping for a miracle solution. The problem isn't going anywhere, and after careful consideration, neither am I. So we should probably get acquainted. Still here, both of us. This task looks smaller yesterday. I'm absolutely certain of it. 24 hours ago, it seemed completely manageable. This task looks smaller yesterday. Something has clearly happened. Either the project got bigger, or my confidence got smaller. When I first saw the assignment, I wasn't concerned at all. A few quick steps, a little effort, nothing worth worrying about. Then I spent a day avoiding it, and somehow during that time it transformed into a massive undertaking with emotional consequences and dramatic lighting. The task stayed the same. The imagination got involved. This task looks smaller yesterday. I'm absolutely certain of it. 24 hours ago, it seemed completely manageable. This task looks smaller yesterday. Something has clearly happened. Either the project got bigger, or my confidence got smaller. Now every little detail feels like a separate challenge. complications that don't even exist yet, preparing for problems the project hasn't considered. Meanwhile, the actual work still hasn't started, which feels important. I've turned a small hill into a mountain range. This task looked smaller yesterday, before I gave it time to grow. Before I spent 12 hours thinking of everything that could go wrong. This task looked smaller yesterday, back when it was just a task. Now it's a storyline with tension and character development. Funny how procrastination adds special effects to everything. This task looked smaller yesterday, but maybe that's the trick. The longer I wait, the bigger it appears. This task looked smaller yesterday, and tomorrow it'll probably look bigger. So perhaps today is the smallest it's ever going to be. Size estimate concerning. I'll definitely regret this later. That's become pretty obvious. Future me is already disappointed, and technically he hasn't arrived yet. I'll definitely regret this later. The warning signs are everywhere, but apparently that's a problem for a different version of me. The responsible choice is clear, the smart decision is obvious. The deadline is approaching, the consequences are well documented. And yet somehow here I am again, making excellent plans to avoid making progress. It's almost impressive in a deeply unhelpful way. The mistake is visible, I'm walking toward it anyway. I'll definitely regret this later. That's become pretty obvious. Future me is already disappointed, and technically he hasn't arrived yet. I'll definitely regret this later. The warning signs are everywhere, but apparently that's a problem for a different version of me. I've done this enough times to recognize the pattern. Step 1, ignore the task. Step 2, feel strangely confident. Step 3, watch the confidence disappear at exactly the same speed. The deadline approaches, the system has been tested thoroughly. Experience has taught me nothing except what happens next. I'll definitely regret this later. The evidence keeps piling up. Every unnecessary delay feels like a note I'm leaving for myself. I'll definitely regret this later, but later still seems far away, which is always been my favorite misunderstanding. It's amazing how calm I am, considering I know exactly where this story goes. I'll definitely regret this later. The future remains predictable. Tonight I'll make promises, tomorrow I'll make excuses, and eventually I'll make a heroic recovery. I'll definitely regret this later, but until later arrives, I'm somehow still convinced thrilled. My productivity starts tomorrow. Today's more of a planning day. I know I said that yesterday, but this time I really mean it. My productivity starts tomorrow. The schedule's already finalized. Tomorrow's gonna be incredible, assuming tomorrow ever arrives. This morning had potential, I could feel it in the air. A brand new opportunity to become a different person. The organized version, the focused version, the version with healthy habits and remarkable self-discipline. Unfortunately, that person called in sick without notice. The dream is alive, the execution is delayed. My productivity starts tomorrow. Today's more of a planning day. I know I said that yesterday, but this time I really mean it. My productivity starts tomorrow. The schedule's already finalized. Tomorrow's gonna be incredible, assuming tomorrow ever arrives. I spent the afternoon preparing for all the work I'll do later. I cleaned up my workspace, reviewed my priorities, made a realistic timeline, then revised it 3 times to make it even more realistic, which somehow resulted in doing absolutely nothing for the 4th consecutive day. I've become very efficient at postponing efficiency. My productivity starts tomorrow. The launch date remains unchanged, despite several previous launches that never actually happened. My productivity starts tomorrow, and honestly, the expectations are getting a little unreasonable for a day that's never delivered. Tomorrow has an excellent reputation for someone who's never shown proof. My productivity starts tomorrow. That's the official statement. And until evidence suggests otherwise, I'm standing by it completely. My productivity starts tomorrow. The future looks amazing. The present remains a work in progress. At best, see you tomorrow. Again. I was about to start, honestly. You almost missed it. I had the document open, the coffee ready. The motivation was considering it. I was about to start, honestly. The timing was incredible. If you had checked 5 seconds earlier, you would have seen it happen, probably. Everything was finally lining up. The conditions were ideal. No distractions, no excuses, no obvious obstacles. For the first time all day, I actually felt ready. Then somehow I remembered something unrelated, looked it up quickly, and disappeared into a completely different afternoon. The beginning was close, historically close. I was about to start, honestly. You almost missed it. I had the document open, the coffee ready. The motivation was considering it. I was about to start, honestly. The timing was incredible. If you had checked 5 seconds earlier, you would have seen it happen, probably. At one point, I even sat up straight, which felt significant. People don't talk enough about the effort and start, honestly. The evidence is mostly circumstantial, but I believe my intentions were completely genuine. I was about to start, honestly, then the moment slipped away, which keeps happening with suspicious consistency. If intentions counted as progress, I'd be finished already. Say the same thing, but one of these days, by pure coincidence, I'll actually be right. Starting soon, estimated. The clock is moving faster now. I swear it wasn't doing this before. All week it barely moved at all. Now suddenly it's setting records. The clock is moving faster now, and I don't appreciate the change. It waited until the last possible moment to become efficient. 3 days ago, an hour lasted forever. I checked the time constantly, and nothing happened. The afternoon stretched endlessly. Every minute took its time, then the deadline got closer, and somehow the universe adjusted the settings without consulting me. Yesterday was slow, today is a blur. The clock is moving faster now. I swear it wasn't doing this before. All week it barely moved at all. Now suddenly it's setting records. The clock is moving faster now, and I don't appreciate the change. It waited until the last possible moment to become efficient. I sat down to finally focus, looked at the task, made a plan, took a deep breath and checked the time, and somehow an entire hour had disappeared. I don't know where it went, but I'd like it back along with several others that vanished under similar circumstances. The deadline is approaching. The clock is helping it. Oh! The clock is moving faster now. The evidence is undeniable. Every time I look away, another 20 minutes disappear. The clock is moving faster now at exactly the wrong moment, which feels suspiciously personal, if I'm being honest. Funny how time speeds up the second you finally decide to stop wasting it. The clock is moving faster now, and panic is joining the conversation. The same task I ignored all week has become tonight's entire agenda. The clock is moving faster now, but maybe that's not the problem. Maybe it was always moving, and I just noticed. Too late. Current time concerning. I have a system, it doesn't work, but technically it is a system. I've spent years refining it into a highly organized way of avoiding important things. I have a system, it doesn't work, and yet I keep defending it like the next time will somehow be different. First I make a list, then I rearrange the lists, then I make a better list based on the first list's mistakes. Then I estimate timelines, create reminders, set priorities, and color code everything until the organization process becomes a full-time job job of its own. The planning is flawless, the results are mysterious. I have a system, it doesn't work, but technically it is a system. I spent years refining it into a highly organized way of avoiding important things. I have a system, it doesn't work, and yet I keep defending it like the next time will somehow be different. The system says start with the hardest task. Unless the hardest task feels difficult, then begin with something smaller. Unless something smaller leads to a distraction, in which case take a short break, which historically becomes a significantly longer break. The system has many steps, success isn't one of them. Every problem has a solution. My system creates new problems. I have a system, it doesn't work, but it looks incredibly professional. From the outside, I have charts, schedules, methods, strategies, and absolutely no explanation for why nothing is finished. At some point, you'd think I'd try a completely different approach. But then what would happen to the system? I have a system, it doesn't work, and deep down I think we both know it. The system and I have been through a lot together, mostly delays, missed opportunities, and unnecessary complexity. I have a system, it doesn't work, but tomorrow I'm making some improvements that should fix everything. Probably. Version 14.2, still testing. One more distraction won't hurt, that's what I keep telling myself. Just a quick detour, just a tiny break, then suddenly the day's gone somewhere else. One more distraction won't hurt, at least that's the theory. Unfortunately, the evidence is starting to disagree. I was making real progress, momentum finally showed up. The task was moving, the future looked promising. Then my phone lit up with something completely irrelevant. A message, a headline, a random recommendation. And apparently that was enough to derail an entire afternoon. My attention span travels light. One more distraction won't hurt, that's what I keep telling myself. Just a quick detour, just a tiny break, then suddenly the day's gone somewhere else. One more distraction won't hurt, at least that's the theory. Unfortunately, the evidence is starting to disagree. I checked one notification, which became 5 notifications, which became a search, which became another search, which somehow became an article about medieval castles, and then a video about restoring old tractors. The task I was working on didn't survive the journey, but I learned some fascinating things for no practical reason. The curiosity is impressive, the priorities are not. One more distraction won't hurt, the phrase has aged poorly. I've used it so many times, it's basically a warning label now. One more distraction won't hurt, famous last words, honestly. Every productive day I've lost started exactly this way. It's never the first distraction, it's the 17 that follow. One more distraction won't hurt, but maybe maybe that's not true anymore. Maybe every little interruption is part of a larger collection. One more distraction won't hurt until they all add up together, and suddenly it's tomorrow and nothing got done again. Attention redirected. Please hold. The panic finally kicked in, right on schedule, which is impressive considering nothing else was. The panic finally kicked in, and suddenly I'm unstoppable. Funny how motivation arrives the moment things get dangerous. Yeah. For days I remained calm, suspiciously calm, unreasonably calm for someone with a deadline slowly approaching, like a train visible from miles away, that I somehow convinced myself would change directions at the last minute. Confidence was high, reality was patient. The panic finally kicked in, right on schedule, which is impressive considering nothing else was. The panic finally kicked in, and suddenly I'm unstoppable. Funny how motivation arrives the moment things get dangerous. Now I'm answering emails, finishing projects, making decisions instantly. The same tasks that seemed impossible yesterday are somehow getting completed at incredible speed. Apparently I had this ability the entire time. I just needed a mild existential crisis to unlock it. The pressure increased, so did the productivity. The panic finally kicked in, and look at me now, focused, determined, operating at peak efficiency. The panic finally kicked in. Turns out fear is a powerful manager, not a pleasant one, but undeniably effective. I've achieved more in the last 2 hours than I did in the previous 2 weeks, which feels informative and concerning. The panic finally kicked in. The deadline is still approaching, but now we're running in the same direction. The panic finally kicked in, and somehow that's good news, because nothing motivates me quite like discovering I'm out of time. Heart rate productive. Somehow it got done anyway. I don't fully understand it. A few hours ago, the situation looked impossible. Somehow it got done anyway, against the odds, against the schedule, and honestly, against my expectations. The plan completely fell apart around day 3. The timeline collapsed, the motivation disappeared, the productivity system failed, the backup system failed, and several emergency solutions never even left the drawing board. By all available evidence, this should not have worked. The process was questionable. The result exists. Somehow it got done anyway. I don't fully understand it. A few hours ago, the situation looked impossible. Somehow it got done anyway, against the odds, against the schedule, and honestly, against my expectations. like a superhero with terrible timing. I wouldn't recommend the method, but the method has results. Somehow it got done anyway. The mystery continues every time. I promise I'll never do this again. And every time we somehow end up here, somehow it got done anyway. The lesson remains unclear because success keeps arriving just often enough to encourage bad decisions. I should learn from this. History suggests otherwise. Somehow it got done anyway. The deadline has been defeated. The task is complete. The stress is fading, and confidence is returning dangerously fast. Somehow it got done anyway. Which means tomorrow I'll probably convince myself I can wait until the last minute again. Problem solved. Memory erased. Today was supposed to be day one, the fresh start, the new routine, the version of me I've always meant to be. Today was supposed to be day one. I even wrote it on the calendar. Unfortunately, I also wrote start tomorrow. Last night I was unstoppable. I had goals, I had vision. I had a detailed plan with bullet points and realistic milestones. Future success looked inevitable from the comfort of my couch at 11:37. Everything seemed possible before morning arrived. Today was supposed to be day one, the fresh start, the new routine, the version of me I've always meant to be. Today was supposed to be day one. I even wrote it on the calendar. Unfortunately, I also wrote start tomorrow. I watched 3 productivity videos to prepare for being productive, then spent an hour researching the perfect method for starting things instead of actually starting them. The irony wasn't lost on me. I just chose not to make eye contact with it. I've done a lot of preparation for someone avoiding the first step. Oh, today was supposed to be day one, the fresh start, the new routine, the version of me I've always meant to be. Today was supposed to be day one. Everything was ready to go, except apparently the person responsible for doing it. Maybe tomorrow will feel different. I said that before, but one of these days, statistically, I'll be right. Today was supposed to be day one, and somehow it's already evening. The plan still looks impressive. The execution remains theoretical. Today was supposed to be day one, but day one keeps moving, which is honestly remarkable, considering it's a day on a calendar tomorrow.